welcome to Ghoulin Around. I am your host and the only person here today, Joanne Massey, and I'm going to be doing a book review on a few books that I have read, and to kind of put in perspective on how much I read/listen. I actually do the audiobooks. I've gone through 4 audiobooks in the past 2 weeks, just driving around in my car, going to and from school and work. I'm always looking for new books to read. I read all kinds of stuff. I read horror, sci-fi. I even read a lot of Lindsay Sands, which is like a romance novelist, but she has a vampire series out there, so I have read those. I've read a lot of Anne Rice, Stephen King, Michael Crichton. I've almost read all of Michael Crichton's stuff. A few from Dean Koontz. I like reading different ones. There's also an Arizona native named T.M. Williams. I've read a few of her books. I absolutely love her books. So I read a lot. Have you ever had any suggestions on what I should read, or maybe you want to see me do a review on a certain book? Please let me know. I'm more than willing to try to read these books. Just do not ask me to do a Lord of the Rings. It's not going to happen. I hate those books. It's just, I can't even make it through the first one without, okay, I can't do this. So the 3 books that I'm going to be talking about right now, I know I said I've read 4 in the past week, but the last one I'm kind of waiting. I'm going to watch the movie and do a movie/book review on it, which would be Rosemary's Baby. Halfway through the movie, so that will be coming soon. And then, so these 3 books that I have read lately, I actually met the authors at Phoenix Comic-Con this past year, and I've never heard of these books, never heard of these authors before, but they just sounded so interesting that I had to give them a shot. And the first book I'm going to talk about is it's got to be my absolute favorite as of recently, and that's called Vicious. And Vicious is by V. Schwab. The summary of this book is that it follows 2 pre-med students, Victor and Eli, and they decide to research EOs and these extraordinary individuals that gain superpowers. Well, as they're researching into the medical aspect, they actually find that all these people who have extraordinary powers, there's a trend that all these people have had near-death experiences and have suffered trauma because of it. So they actually start experimenting and recreating it so that they can gain superpowers. And through trial and error, they eventually, get it down. So they're constantly trying to kill each other and bring each other back from the dead. It's pretty interesting. And then eventually, they gain superpowers and stuff happens and a huge plot twist and all that. I loved this book so much. Her second one, it's going to be called Vengeful. It's going to be the sequel to this, and it doesn't come out till September, so I cannot wait to read this book. Unfortunately, it's probably going to take even longer to get onto audiobook, so I might just have to pick it up and just read it. So the way that I based my reviews on these books is I rated the characters, the storyline, writing, and miscellaneous, and then for each miscellaneous I gave why I scored it that way and what it's based on, because all books are different. You really can't treat them like movies where you can treat it like acting and scariness and jump scares, stuff like that. They're all kind of their own thing. So I put a miscellaneous category, and then of course I've got my overall. So for this book, we're going to start with characters, and of course, 10 being the highest, I gave the characters a 10 out of 10. I loved these characters in this book. Victor and Eli are the 2 main characters. Of course, you have quite a few sideline characters, and they are absolutely just so well thought out and very well done. I loved the way that she did this book. The best part about this book is Victor and Eli, they end up battling pretty much and going I can't really explain it without giving it away, but battling each other, and neither of them are good. So you have no good characters. You're either voting for one bad versus the other bad. And so I really liked that concept that we didn't have any good individuals we could vote for. in this battle that was going on. I personally, if you read the book, I personally loved Victor. I would so side with Victor. Victor was just so smart, so awesome. Absolutely love that character. He's so twisted. But you just gotta watch out for him too, because he's not a good person. So yeah, I gave that a 10 out of 10. I loved the characters in this book. The storyline, I also gave a 10 out of 10. I loved the storyline. It was so well thought out. The twist at the end was perfect. I mean, I absolutely loved the way that she did this, and she thought it out so good, because when you get to the end and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that all that happened, you're just like, oh my gosh, okay, great. I can't wait for the second book to come out. The writing in this book, so like this type of writing that it is, I gave this one an 8 out of 10. And the only reason why I didn't get a 10 out of 10 is because I didn't think she was descriptive enough. A lot of the characters she was very descriptive with, but Victor, which is the main character, she wasn't very descriptive with. She just said, he's a pre-med student, he's good looking, and he's got blonde hair. And I was like, well, that doesn't tell me anything. Everybody's concept of good looking is different, so I'm just left with, well, I don't know what this kid looks like. And one thing I like to do when I read books is I like to look up fan art, because I like to see what other people are seeing compared to what I see. And so I looked up some fan art of this, and it kind of gave me like a different concepts of what he could look like. And I never thought any of these concepts were what I would think, but I think she could have been a little bit more descriptive in her characters. Other than that, the writing was great. It flowed very, very well. The chapters jump from like when they were med students to like 10 years later, but like every time that the chapter starts, it tells you exactly in the timeline where you are and what's going on, so you weren't lost. So it was very well done. The next one is Miscellaneous, and for this book, so I based the Miscellaneous on her research, the twist, and then also her medical research that she did into this. Because I had actually went to her panel at Comic-Con, and she was talking about all this medical research she had to do. And for me, for being in the medical field, like I thought she did a really good job. There was a few inconsistencies that didn't make sense medically, but the storyline was so great that like I was able to just pass those and keep going on. So they didn't bother me as much as like some of the medical inconsistencies with movies. And I really loved the way that she really thought this out, because when they get the powers and you meet these other characters with powers, you eventually find out how they got their powers, why they got the powers that they did, because they're not assigned randomly. You don't just get like random powers. They get them for a reason, and the reasons behind them are just great. And the way that she really thought out this whole idea, and the way that they were killing themselves and bringing them back, like she really did her research on how the body could be suspended and brought back to life. So I thought it was great. I also thought that the medical aspect was also very well done, because she uses a couple of like medical terminology, but like it's not something that the general public wouldn't understand. So it's great that even if you don't know medical terminology or what's going on, you still understand everything in this book. So don't be scared of the medical aspect as well. So overall, with all of those, this book, I rated a 9.5 out of 10. This book was amazing. I highly recommend it for anybody who wants to read it, wants to listen to it. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I cannot wait for the second book to come out. The next two books are a series, and this was also an author that I had met at Comic-Con, and the same exact panel, because they were all talking about the research that they've done in their books. And this author, his name is Aaron Mahnke. he also does his own podcast on like folklore. So the first one I ended up reading by him was Lore, Monstrous Creatures. And so these books are accounts of like non-fictional stories of people who have encountered like this supernatural or believe that they have encountered this supernatural. And you know, we've all heard of like, you know, the Salem witch trials and people who were believed to be like vampires, stuff like that. And he talks about these accounts, and he really, really goes in depth with his research. I mean, he did such a wonderful job, and he's got like real accounts, real names, real timelines, real everything. And it's so amazing the non-fictional work that he did with these books. So when I graded the characters, obviously the characters aren't really characters, they're actually real people. But the fact that he's got the names and the accounts and everything right, I mean, I gave it a 10 out of 10. It was just amazing that he could put together something like this. The storyline flows so great. I mean, he starts off in this book talking about like the vampire accounts, and then he gradually flows into werewolves and then zombies and all kinds of different accounts. And the way he flows through each one is just very well done. So I guess that's kind of storyline plus writing. So, I mean, both of them I gave a 10 out of 10. He was just really good with this account. And if you do the audiobooks, it is actually Aaron Mahnke doing his own audiobooks. So you get to listen to him do that as well. And like I said, he does his own podcast, and it's pretty much the same exact thing as if you were to listen to his audiobooks. The miscellaneous on this, I gave an 8 out of 10, and I based this on some of the topics he kind of touches on again later on, and it's like, well, you already told us about this. I understand that it plays a part in this now, but we already talked about this, and that's the only reason why I gave it an 8 out of 10 and not a 10 out of 10, because some of the concepts and the same storylines he would bring up later on, and I didn't really like that I had to listen to the same thing over again. So overall, I gave it a 9.5 out of 10, which is still great. I mean, I love these books. I really liked the non-fictional aspect. So it was really neat. I love hearing about like real stories of, you know, possessions or witch trials, stuff like that. And that was pretty much what the whole monster book was about. And he goes over a ton of different monsters. I mean, he talks about vampires, werewolves, zombies, fairies, gremlins, changelings. I mean, he talks about all kinds of different things, and it's just really cool that you get to know like where this folklore came from, how it developed, and how it developed into modern days society and how we look at it now. The second book was also, or the third book in this review is Lore, and it's Wicked Morals, or Wicked Mortals, sorry. And so this was pretty much, it was written the same way, and it was on accounts of like serial killers. So like he talks about like the axe murders, he talks about H.H. Holmes, stuff like that, and it's pretty much written the same exact format where he goes through the different accounts of people who have encountered the serial killers or like the crime scene investigation, stuff like that, and the folklore behind it. So I actually rated the Wicked Mortals and the Monstrous Creatures the exact same. So characters, 10 out of 10, storyline and writing, 10 out of 10. The miscellaneous, still an 8 out of 10, because he still brings up like the same concepts. Like I read the monster book first, and then I read the Wicked Mortals, and he goes right back into talking about some of the monster accounts, and I'm like, well, we've already talked about this, dude. Like, I mean, I get it. It plays a part in this, but we already talked about this. You don't have to be in depth on it again. But other than that, I mean, the research he put into this, I mean, as you're reading it, you can just imagine all this research that he had to do, and it's outstanding. Overall, 9.5 out of 10. So all three of these books, loved. If you like the non-fictional type stuff and the monster accounts, or even serial killers, I highly recommend the lore books. They are absolutely amazing. If you like more of the non-fictional kind of sci-fi horror, Vicious was amazing. I cannot wait for the second book. I'm super excited. I believe that Aaron Mahnke also has another lore book coming out very soon. I know, like, on Audible, it's on pre-order if I want to pre-order it. The Vengeful, I don't think is going to be on Audible anytime soon, so unfortunately I'm going to have to actually sit down and read that book. Also, the fourth book that I had read is Rosemary's Baby, but I kind of want to wait to do that book review until I've finished watching the movie, and then I can just review them at the same time and just post on Rosemary's Baby by itself. I also started a new book by accident. I downloaded this book by accident, and I was like, well, it's already downloaded. I might as well read it. And the author is Bentley Little, and I've never heard of him before, but the only thing I knew about it was Stephen King had said that he's great. He's a great horror author. And so I ended up downloading, I think it's called Walking Alone, and it's a series of 27 short stories. And I started listening to this, and I was extremely taken back about the horror and the gruesome of these stories. I mean, like, the first two stories I listened to in the car on the day that I had downloaded it, I was just like, oh my God, like, this is crazy. And it's so great because I guess Bentley Little is also from Arizona, so all of his stories are from Prescott, Flagstaff, Phoenix, and I actually know these areas, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, it makes it a little bit more creepy because I've been there. I've seen that store he's talking about, or I've seen the village that he's talking about, and it's just like, oh my goodness, like, it's really, really good. Once I finish that book, which will probably be soon, I think I'm on like story number 20 out of 27, so it should be pretty short. Not too long before I post the second book review, and I'll probably talk about the Rosemary's Baby and Rosemary's the novel and the book, or the novel and the book, the novel and the movie. And then I'll also talk about the Bentley Little book, and I'm probably going to end up reading more Bentley Little after this, because now that I've gotten a taste of his short stories, I kind of want to see what one of his novels is going to be like. So that's all I have for you today, and I hope you like reading some books, and I hope you take my advice and keep watching.